Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henrik Bick. I'm here with the communications team at the Music Business Association. Happy to welcome you to today's webinar session with Eluvio, talking about improvements on the live stream and ticketing ecosystem thanks to blockchain technology. Before we get started, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping notes for everybody for today's session. In order to chat with one another, in case you want to meet your industry peers that are attending live today, be sure to use the chat panel in your Zoom dashboard and change your setting to panelists and attendees so everyone can see what you're saying. And in case you have any questions for our presenter today, be sure to drop them in the Q&A box and we will address them in the closing minutes of the session here. Outside of today's session, I have a couple of event notes for you. In case you missed it, we announced the registration and call for presentations are now open for MusicBiz 2022, set to take place May 9th through the 12th, 2022, back at the JW Marriott Nashville. For the call for presentations, we'll be taking your ideas for panels from now through December 6th. Feel free to submit any well thought out creative ideas on how to either inspire collaborative growth in the music industry or push for a more collaborative, inclusive, and inviting industry climate for everyone who works through it. Stay tuned in the coming months as we begin to roll out more details on next year's conference. And you can do so by visiting our website, musicbiz.org, or following us on socials at MusicBizAssoc on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Finally, well before that, we have our Metadata Summit coming up October 5th through 7th via Socio. In addition to our stellar 3-day program, we also have plenty of opportunities on the Socio platform to network with one another while attending virtually. And for those who attend, if you're not able to attend some of the sessions live, you'll be able to do so via recordings that are available after the fact. We've just rolled out some updates to our program that you can find also via our website. So be sure to check it out. It's right on our main page, musicbiz.org. And now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Eluvio Live co-founder and CEO, Michelle Munson, to introduce today's topic. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Oh, thank you very much. And thanks everybody for attending today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully this comes across for everyone well. Got a little preview to my demo. Today, it's really my pleasure to talk to you about a new platform that we've created based on some pretty significant technology innovation, which we call Eluvio Live. It is novel in its approach to content monetization in general on behalf of artists and their representatives, and allows for really a full experience of streaming and ticketing and direct monetization based on a new platform we call the Eluvio Content Fabric. To get started, I want to share a little bit about myself. Obviously, I'm not an artist, I'm a technologist. I also actually don't have much experience with music, but I do have a great deal of experience with creating new technology, if you will, for content over the internet. I not only started Eluvio with our core team. Prior to this, I also created a technology that is still to this day used widely for high-speed file transfer of digital media files called Aspera. And as I was coming out of that experience in 2017, a couple of my colleagues and I noted and felt like there was a real opportunity to do something different for video and digital media content at large scale over the internet. At that time, blockchain principles were also starting to become mainstream. And we also felt like we could apply some of the more foundational ideas of content networking, which I'll tell you about, to solve the emergent problems of how much video was getting distributed over the internet. And little did we know that over the span of the next few years, of course, we would have the global pandemic, which really put everything online. And then on top of that, we have the real mainstreamization of blockchain crypto as a way of thinking about decentralized finance. And some of the early decisions we took in the architecture of our platform called the Content Fabric have really now come to fruition to serve what seems to be an emerging set of opportunities. And We found our place in live music because there was so much demand during the pandemic to really help artists to reach their audiences. So what I'm going to share with you today are really applications and also the foundations of this platform that allow for artists who are in music and also related fields to be able to not only stream and ticket, but fully monetize their content based on this technology. So if I could just kind of start at the top about what is this? Eluvio Live is effectively a full-blown streaming, ticketing, and NFT platform that lives on top of what is effectively a content blockchain. And I know that that's all probably a lot to swallow in one statement, but we'll try to dive in and explain each part of this. The platform itself allows for streaming at 4K quality with low latency, and also what you would consider fully interactive support globally, direct from the source content to the consumer. And it does that without use of traditional technologies like content delivery networks in a traditional sense, or cloud services. One of the great benefits of that is it is extremely efficient. Both in terms of the performance, it's also extremely efficient in terms of the cost. And then finally, it does allow, because it's very dynamic, and I'll explain how, for personalized experiences, starting with things like just multicam control inside of a live streamed event, but also getting into more elaborate features that might even involve hotspots, say in an extended reality kind of environment. The second thing that is also very foundational to this is that the access control and then actual ticketing is directly built in. And that emanates from the fact that the very principle of this network is that all content is essentially in a blockchain, and the access control to it is really governed by a set of contracts that mediate all accesses and have allowed us to create a digital ticketing system, which is directly built in. This is hugely advantageous because it means, first of all, you don't have to go get a separate system for ticketing. It also means that there's no additional cost to the ticketing. And then finally, now in these most recent months, the most powerful sort of next derivative is the tickets are also, or can be, non-fungible tokens. And those of you that are following the NFT space can appreciate that this starts to make the user's media wallet, which is part of this platform, a means by which you can essentially continuously engage with fans. That brings me to the third pillar of capability of the platform, which is the ability to mint any digital content from not only individual images or short form animations or clips, but also just full length concerts, for example, as non-fungible tokens, NFTs. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time kind of giving all the background on what NFTs are. I'll assume that everybody's doing a little bit of self-education around the space right now, given how extremely popular NFTs have become. The most important point in this platform is that the creation of NFTs is intrinsic and direct from the content in the content fabric. That means that it's fast, it happens instantly, it doesn't cost in terms of transaction fees like you would experience on a more conventional, if you will, blockchain separated from the media. And then thirdly, the rights that are part of the media are directly linked via the way the fabric works to the token itself. And it just opens up a whole myriad of possibilities for using non-fungible tokens, not only just to be collector's items, but also to allow creators to use them as a new way of giving access to any media experience and monetizing that, selling it. And then the fourth pillar of capability here emanates from the way the content fabric makes possible selling media. And that is that you can have turnkey marketplaces that allow for a musician, an artist, a media brand to be able to have not only live events that also allow for on-demand rewatch, but full VOD libraries of content, as well as NFT marketplaces. And those really are served from the underlying content fabric, much like websites are served from Shopify. You simply configure your content, your assets, and the fabric serves those for you. They're turnkey and again, also low cost because the underlying technology does not require building in the cost of external content delivery networks and loads of cloud services like AWS and whatnot, right? So I'm sure then the next question to that is, well, how does this stuff really work? Given that this is really a set of bold claims. And this is what I'd like to kind of share with you as we get into the rest of the webcast today. So I'm going to start first of all with the streaming capability, tell you a little bit about that, and then get into the ticketing and marketplace functions. And then I'm going to do a deeper dive into the underlying technology. So let's start our journey. Firstly, on the streaming side, the platform allows for what you would consider broadcast quality, low latency streaming at 4K with HDR options direct to global audiences. And I think this is one of the most important facets of what this achieves on behalf of artists. And I included a screenshot of one of our most significant events so far, which was a multi-camera 4K live streamed event, 90-minute concert for the Black Eyed Peas in June. We have another concert like this coming up that is effectively a streamed iconic film for artist Rita Ora coming up in about 10 days. These events, and in particular, this one that I'm going to show you, allow for the audience to essentially buy their ticket, stream the concert, but without the compromises that have traditionally come with what we think of as virtual platforms. First of all, high quality, and especially when experienced on a device like the Apple TV, the 4K HDR just elevates to a whole nother level. The second thing is the content is also, as I mentioned, encrypted and also has full digital rights management support, DRM support, which allows it to be protected from pirating, clearly important in these events. And then because, and we'll get into this a little bit more, all of the streamed content is essentially, backed by the implicit blockchain transaction, we have on record the fact that the user has played and streamed the concert down to the granularity of 2-second intervals within the play out experience. And all of that reporting comes back to you as a tenant in the platform. There are no intermediaries that are required to do that. So it makes it, again, fast, low cost, and direct and provable. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the interactivity side. And we'll get into this in terms of how it actually works a little bit later. But because the content fabric is a dynamic and sort of composing media platform, meaning it composes the output media that it serves from data and the content itself. It means that we can have interactive experiences, such as in the Peas concert, there were 6 4K HDR, if you will, feeds that were simultaneously streamed. The users can choose from a control which camera view they want to see. And when they click on that particular view, the player doesn't have to switch to another stream. There's no overhead. Instead, the fabric actually synthesizes into the very stream the player has already loaded the segments for the view that they have chosen to move to. And while this is a technical idea, it's quite foundational and important to quality of experience, because it means that that kind of multi-mode experience is very lightweight on the player, It doesn't lead to those like reloads and rebuffers. And it also allows for making a very interactive experience where each person can essentially be controlling what they're viewing, and is also high quality, right? And that same concept can also be extended to what are very popular now, AR and multiverse experiences. And those might even be in a 3D space where the interactivity is not just a 2D view, but also might be choosing points in the space, right? Finally, because those selections are driven by data, it also means those can be, hotspots, if you will, for doing other things. And one of the most interesting applications now is to use those kind of interactive points with the stream in order to, for example, offer NFTs and to bring an interactivity to the experience that might even be a game, for example. Next thing I want to talk about is the blockchain access control and the ticketing side. One of the things that I think is really profound to changing the monetization opportunities for creators and their associates is the fact that this platform allows you to actually reach your audience directly, including managing the ticketing as part of the media distribution. And by that, I mean that the ticketing functionality is backed by blockchain contracts and the cryptography of the fabric that allows then for selling digital tickets, which look literally like as you would expect, can be configured as different rates and terms, for example, geographic restrictions, you name it, selling those and allowing the users to redeem them to watch on browser, to watch on mobile, to watch on Apple TV, to watch on Roku. The tiering is completely open. The tickets can have any terms you might like. And the user is then issued a digital ticket code, which can also have a QR code associated with it. And of course is also redeemable with the restrictions that the blockchain contract policy in the fabric uses. And those are really wide open. So you can configure restrictions on any ticket class that include things like obviously time windows of availability, but also client geography, also things like NFT ownership as a criteria for access control, right? So, and this is happening now. You can actually have a token sale, NFT sale that allows for users who bought and own those NFTs through their wallet to then be ticketed effectively to watch the show. And then finally, in terms of the coupling to payments, like how do users actually then pay on the site, we've fully integrated standard digital payments, Stripe, PayPal, and then also we being a blockchain platform also have support native crypto payments as well. This is built in. And then finally, I want to mention that unlike traditional platforms that really gouge with fees, we do not do that, right? This first of all has intrinsic native technology that sucks out the cost, which means that we can pass that efficiency to you. And then secondly, our platform is not in the business of trying to restrict ticketing, but instead to make it something that you just inherently have access to. And I just gave a little bit of back end here. It's not as sexy as the front end experiences that, our sites and ticketing, checkout and whatnot, but so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on behind the scenes. This is the Eluvio content fabric browser showing a couple of objects, if you will, that back the Black Eyed Peas concert. One of those is a management application that allows for configuring all the data that shows up on the concert site, the ticket classes. And I took a screenshot of the two of the different ticketed offerings, one that was at Miami time, one at Tokyo time, for example, and then the particular ticket class itself, right? If you can see that, these particular classes are then actually part of the if you will, permissioned access control for this site. And it's very simple to configure and operate because each of those ticket classes is then associated with the actual streamed content for the show. and also can have the rules and restrictions that need to be applied. And because this is built like from as a platform approach, we're not boxed in, so that if the criteria for setting boundaries on what any individual group of tickets can do or entitle needs to change, that's very flexible and can grow with the policy support in the blockchain contracts themselves. The other thing I wanted to say is that all of what you see in the presentation layer is actually served directly from the fabric. So it's your CMS, your content management system. It's also your CDN. And these sites can have new images, new data added at any time. So, and really what happens is that gets added and we simply update links, and the fabric is serving to the front end the latest versions of those. So for example, let's say you're putting on a concert or a drop event of some kind where you wanted to have a series of promotional videos, one that comes up this day and one comes up this next day. Publishing those and making those live is very simple. They just ingest to the fabric, update the reference in the event object, and then update the links, and it's live on the main site. This also sucks out huge amounts of cost because we don't have all these intermediary layers that have to be contracted and paid for and working together and moving stuff around, right? Now I want to talk a little bit about these non-fungible tokens that everybody keeps hearing about and how this all relates to NFTs, because we really feel that this is probably the best illustration of why such an approach can be extremely helpful to artists and media brands. And that is that today, these non-fungible tokens are essentially two things. They're a contract out on a blockchain somewhere that has a reference to a piece of media somewhere else. And I use two examples here. The first one is the Kings of Leon album that was released, I don't know, 9 months or so ago, and announced that it was the first NFT album. If you actually go and look at the NFT, the album itself was hosted on AWS S3, and it's actually hosted through an HTTPS URL, which means that you can simply go and curl, download that URL, and you have the album. And in fact, anybody who actually goes and reads the NFT's metadata can do that, right? Now, at the time this came out, people didn't, put two and two together. But what that means is if you're actually going to sell albums this way, in this particular setup, anybody can copy the thing. There's absolutely no enforcement or link between the NFT contract on the blockchain and the media asset itself, right? And then I want to take kind of a corollary to this, right? Another example, which is a little bit different. It's the infamous, Beeple, right? And in the case of Beeple, right, the auction that occurred was a big deal. And of course, the owner possessed the NFT contract and whatnot. And then the JPEG that the Beeple image refers to is a image stored on the IPFS network, right? And the IPFS network itself is a decentralized network of nodes. The content that is stored in IPFS can be encrypted, doesn't have to be, but can be. But again, the link with the contract is not authorized in any way in association with the contract. So technically speaking, anybody has the print, right? Anybody can go and get the print. And while that might not be a problem when the whole point is to just be a collector of this and to let others just see what you've owned as a collector, certainly in the case of using NFTs to monetize media like the album, this is just not going to cut it. It's not going to work, right? So we kind of take this the next step and say, we've got this fantastic opportunity with the fascination of owning something, right? I have this deed on the blockchain to let me own some media that is just taking the world by storm, and the opportunity it brings. But then the challenge is, the question is, what can we do about it? And this is where the foundations of what we created here at Eluvio really intrinsically address this head on. And let me explain this, right? So we have this problem, right, in the NFT space that it's really impossible if the media asset and the blockchain contract are not intrinsically coupled or linked together, that you can't enforce the exclusivity. You can't make it rare. You can't make it unique. Anybody can go and get the media and have it, even though the token says only I bought it or these 1,000 people bought it, right? How do we address that, right? This is just foundational to how the fabric works. Every media object is also access controlled through a contract, so that in order to stream, for example, that album and listen to it, your entity, your client actually has to own the associated NFT. And those two things go together, meaning that when your client presents a request to stream, the request validates that you are who you say you are, and then authorizes you by checking against a contracted, if you will, policy that your address owns that token, right? And the two are one and the same. The second is this whole issue about, is this media that the contract says it is actually the right media? And in this world of fakes, right, this is a big deal, right? Especially if we want to seize this opportunity to release really premium media experiences, including live events this way, right? And one of the great capabilities of the Eluvio platform is that not only is the access authorized through a blockchain transaction, but there's also through the, if you will, hashing system, which I'll explain as we get into the technology, the proof of what the content bytes actually are. There's a guarantee and a verifiable guarantee, verifiable through an open source proof that the bytes you're reading out are what that media is claiming to be. And then getting into this even further is just opportunities of types of media. One of the other big problems in the present NFT space is because the blockchains are what are serving the NFTs, they have no media capacity. And even Top Shot, as famous as it is limited to tiny little clips. And the clips can't get made until at least a day after the event actually happens, because the media is over here, right? And then the NFT system, the blockchain or the Dapper Labs backend is a completely separate system. We would like to be able to take advantage of this token model for long form media, right? And to have it like worked in hand. And another sort of great benefit of the Fabric architecture is that it allows for any full form media, a movie, a full concert film, a live event to be tokenized in real time, right? And this, we think, is also going to change the sort of plethora of opportunities to think about releasing media through token drops, for example, right? And then the wallet, let's talk about that. I think most people, if they haven't tried to use one, have at least seen somebody messing around with a crypto wallet. And the classical crypto wallets today, again, pure blockchain creations, have a great deal of friction for a normal use and also a mainstream user. The key management's the single biggest problem. First of all, it's awkward and it requires many signing transactions you have to acknowledge. The other thing is it's risky, quite frankly, because the whole idea of blockchain technology that gives it the power is that the private keys are actually yours. You have them, no one else ever has them, and all transactions are authorized by you, basically by signing on your behalf using your private key, right? That means that for the average user, the risk is fairly high and the friction is also high. So one of the things that we put a great deal of effort into is to create a user wallet, a media wallet experience that seamlessly works with the Fabric, so that first of all, it's easy. The media presentation is directly built in, so you can stream and access. And then also the other thing that's interesting about that is that the key management is custodial, meaning the Fabric manages that for the user, and they can sign on with their OAuth credentials, for example, such as with Google or Apple or just an Eluvio ID, and that's extensible to other brands. And then the final thing that I want to say about this is this, what are you doing, or what is the possibility to do things with NFTs? And I feel like this is probably the biggest game changer for everybody, and it's happening right now, which is most of the world of non-fungible tokens has been isolated to high-value collector experiences, and yet there's this really fantastic opportunity out there for it to be a really intrinsic to the whole fan engagement process, and even to be a new window for selling music and selling video content. That requires, and also many gamified forms of this. One of the things you'll see from us and one of our early major NFT platforms is actually a live television show that has an NFT game associated with it. And the point here is that in order to really do those things at scale, you need a way that takes out the cost of transactions and minting, and also makes it possible to reach regular people in a way that's both easy to do and also familiar. So I said a lot about this point, but then to kind of like get a visual look on this, one of the features of the Eluvio Live platform then, of course, is a built-in embeddable modal wallet for all browser experiences, and will also next be native mobile in addition to browser based. And that it's fully custodial, supports OAuth sign-on, and integrates directly with all of the Eluvio playout experiences. It's built to be used by our tenants, which can be any media company or artist or brand. And then the wallet, self-skins and has features that directly allow it to be our technology powering the brand. The other thing I want to mention, and this is a more advanced feature, but it is a capability we support. It's also possible to have brand tokens that are part of your tenancy that you can use to then incentivize behaviors beyond, just having just native payments and checkout and purchasing. And this also extends to the back end, right? And I took this example of the Black Eyed Peas concert. I actually published that into well, first of all, the concert itself being streamed has an on-demand version that is a title mezzanine, and the director's cut in particular in this case, I set it up as a NFT template type. And in the Fabric, all that means is to change the content object type, fill out the metadata, and then that can be listed as a SKU on a store. And those SKUs on a store are actually another site. It's a marketplace that can show those and allow for users to buy the same content. The resultant NFTs mint on demand as they're purchased. And one of the most foundational points is that in minting, there is a unique version of that director's cut of the concert that's created without creating file copies. And that process allows for this to be instant and low cost. And I'll explain in a moment how the Fabric makes that possible. Essentially means that you can have minted experiences that touch any kind of full-length content and tie directly in to the live experiences, the on-demand rewatch experiences, you name it. Right? And then finally, this is actually a developer's view on the wallet. If you're looking at it as sort of a iframe modal, the wallet itself embeds directly into our Eluvio Live sites for concerts and marketplaces. It also has a full API if you have your own site that you would want to embed it directly into. And shows another set of skins here and some of the other use cases. Also, the NFT metadata, of course, is part. And then finally, some of you might ask the question about tokens that then move or need to go to other blockchains like Ethereum mainnet or Solana. One of the great things about the contract link is that the token can transfer, and the link back to the original asset enforced through the content fabric stays, which means that someone can actually sell the token. So imagine that you've effectively tokenized or sold NFTs for a live concert, and someone who's acquired that then can sell that to another person, for example, or take it to another blockchain and sell it there. When they do that, the link that is ties back to the asset itself is still part of that. And then the authorization policy for the token transfer that happens updates to essentially control for the new contract address on the new blockchain as opposed to the previous one. And this is really foundational to being able to have these tokens just move around these blockchains and have that media be able to enforce its rights, and also to collect royalties back on this. Right? You know, I'm saying a lot about this, but we're at the beginning of a very important transition that's happening right now on the internet, and we think these foundations matter a lot. Next, I also want to talk about marketplaces. Obviously, in terms of a live event, you want to be able to merchandise and be able to sell things as part of that traditional merchandise. And I've been talking a lot about digital merchandise like NFTs. You can go beyond that easily in this model because all the content that's in the fabric can actually be listed directly as a SKU on a marketplace. And that is a self-rendering site, just like another Shopify site that you can just have that automatically stands up on top of your library. And then what's shown there can be changed out just as easily as you can change out the video or the images that show on the live event site or on the ticketing part of that, for example. Right. We think this is going to be really important for media brands that want to bring together all types of media selling. And I think for music artists, this really opens up the possibilities that, and also in conjunction with their labels, that you can have really turnkey, if you will, marketplaces that allow for fans to not only experience release content, but also to, you know, buy into collectibles that are associated, and to not have to like spread it around to so many different vendor systems, and also be able to keep the highest share of the revenue from these. And then this makes possible doing live drop events, which can include both entertainment as well as releases of any kind of NFTs. And finally, that brings me to, you know, what is kind of behind all of this, right? So let's see. I'm getting tight into our end of time. So what I want to do is spend a little bit of foundation telling you about the content fabric and showing you a little bit of a demonstration here. So let's see if I can do that. There we go. So before we get too late in this concert, I just wanted to share this with you. I'm running a rewatch of the Black Eyed Peas event. And here you can see the multi-views and all the camera controls, right? And I'll switch over to the all cameras view. And this is what I was mentioning about switching views and the seamlessness of that. If you do that with a traditional technology, most of you will, by the way, this is 4K, not HDR on my browser, HDR on Apple TV, but you all that have done this before realize that, frankly, none of the concert streaming technologies that are out there will have the capability to do something like this that involves absolutely no rebuffering and that kind of switch. And the reason is because it's not happening because of a switch of a stream. The fabric is actually synthesizing in its software that new view. The other thing that's important is we don't have to go get expensive multiplexing video technology to do this. It's the way that the software and the fabric actually works. And I wanted to kind of like lay that out here before I conclude with some background on the technology. I'm going to do that here over the next, say, 5 to 8 minutes, and then we'll finish off with our hour with questions. So behind all this, this global distributed network and decentralized network called the Content Fabric, something we invented, not like most other video technologies in the world. It is effectively a blockchain, and we decided to create it as a protocol By that, I mean it's a software stack that communicates and behaves in a particular way and runs on a network of nodes. The majority of the nodes we own, although some of our customers have contributed nodes. And as the blockchain facets of this have become so important, we are continuing to add more customer validator nodes into this so that it continues to become ever more truly decentralized. The real invention is the software stack, that protocol, which allows video content to be effectively composed from parts in a fundamental way, just in time as it's consumed. The code that does that is also part of the actual underlying sharded and hashed parts, which is a novel idea in itself, but that allows for things like transcoding, packaging, watermarking, and that multi-view switching I just showed you to be done in real time. And then we did apply one thing that our engineering team has. I think, people might say we stand alone in the world in our ability to be able to create real-time software systems that can do this over TCP/IP internet networks. And we designed the protocol to be real time so that it sucks out all the time that's typically spent in IO along a series of paths in traditional content distribution. So that's a really techie way of putting it, but I kind of have to say these things because that's what we do. We're engineers. The main reason we did this is that the internet, the way we do it now, really wasn't built for video. There's a lot of versions that are created and making content being distributed today. And what that means, if you look at traditional distribution, is that the versions, even in live, just get pre-made as flat files, even if broken up in chunks and pushed through the network. And that's happening, all the time and multiplied everywhere. And that process it's not only slow, it's highly redundant in how it utilizes the network and the storage resources all along the way. It also means for live content, there's just constant work to try to work around the limitations of this kind of top-down distribution model. And I won't go into every single part of this, but the result is that it's very difficult for even the most advanced large-scale streaming companies, and I mean the ones that you use every day, to be able to offer live content that is low delay from source, right, at a high quality and a low cost. It's just extremely expensive and brute force to do it. And the companies that have really profited from that are extremely gigantic CDN networks and clouds, right? The other thing that's happened is that you guys know this because you're around a lot of it with the video tech now. You're either directly or indirectly paying for it. And then finally, the whole thing is built so you guys who make content give it over for the audience to, essentially access via another platform. And they take a lot of the value out either through the data and advertising side or directly. So anyway, to kind of wrap up here, I know I don't have a lot of time left. The content fabric is really so radically different because it's not built that way. Its protocol allows for, first of all, objects, media assets of all kinds get broken into these chunks of data and sharded and spread over this network of nodes. And the serving capability from the bottom up allows for those parts to be really found in real time over a global network and to be composed together to be served out to generate the output stream that the user is requesting. And we've made that into almost like, think of a decentralized operating system for serving rich media content at scale. The network is open, the protocol is open, all APIs are open, and then also it is a blockchain in that the only mechanism of sharing state throughout the network is through the protocol, which is based on blockchain consensus. It also means the media has its rights in it. because each of the objects has a contract in the Fabric blockchain that controls access to it. And that's where the policy goes. And that's what makes possible all these things I talked about today, right? So if you look at this, it's a large scale network of nodes where every content object is its media and its metadata at that data layer and has an associated contract for its access control. And then the Fabric is always implementing that protocol to serve, first of all, to authorize and to allow for the output, whether it's streamed or image, static data, whatever, that output to be served to the user on demand. A few more things about this. When we started it, it was small. Now it's actually pretty big. The capacity of the network is certainly over 3 terabits of audience facing capacity and enough concurrent streams for the biggest global concerts that have ever been done to date. And then on top of that, I just kind of wanted to mention, since I won't have a lot of time left, obviously we're getting into many use cases for licensing and selling content on top of this. Our network has gotten quite large. We were very lucky to have a strategic investment into our firm by Blockchain Creative Labs, and that's allowed us to grow a whole nother level. And you probably read a little bit about that if you've followed our company. So it's really bringing many mainstream media opportunities onto this kind of blockchain model. I want to kind of stop there. I think we're at time, and just first of all, I'm going to answer questions in the remaining time, and then I would like to also invite you, if you would like to learn more about this or use our platform for any kind of media-based distribution, starting with live events, to please contact us. I am Michelle with 2 L's and an E at eluv.io. info@eluv.io will get to all of us, and my colleagues Dan Vecchi and Barty McDonald I see on the webcast today. They handle our business in the US and the UK respectively. So on that note, let me check out some questions here. So let me just take them from the top, guys. Will Eluvio license publishing rights? Or does it rely on its clients to pass through rights? So very important concept in this is we take no rights to the content whatsoever, meaning that the publisher, literally from a cryptographic standpoint, owns the content. The content when published is encrypted with owner keys that your tenant has. So we can't take the content from you no matter what, nor can any of the nodes in the network. And this is really important idea and one of the fantastic things about a trustless architecture like this, right? So the short answer is no, we don't license any publishing rights. At the same time, the goal is to enable you to have complete control over your own content and get the revenue from it. We charge for the utility service of the content fabric to distribute your media, right? That's it. That's what we charge for. And in the case of ticketed concerts, the way we manifested that so far is just a transaction fee on the tickets, right? But the key point on all applications on the fabric is that we're utility blockchain, right? And then who pays the royalties to publishers? That's a great question. Who pays the royalties to publishers? In this case, all depends on who owns the content, right? Which is all determined by you as the folks that publish into the fabric itself, right? And I think that what that, everybody, first says, oh, whoa, well, what happens? The beauty of a system like this, guys, and we are seeing people starting to exploit this, is that you could actually accrue your publisher royalties directly through the contracts, right, with multi-party. And I think this is already happening in NFTs because they've just taken the world by storm. But in the fabric, that's possible with every distribution, right? Here's a good one. Wanting to ask what upstream bandwidth is needed per 4K camera. This is also really interesting. So I assume you're talking on the ingest side. I'll answer that. I do want to make very clear on the audience side, the audience is streaming one stream. So that 4K stream that you saw, even if they have 6 different views, they need the bandwidth of one of those. right? That's also not the case with other platforms. You've got basically the player, what's happening often in this multi-camera views is the player is loading all of those streams. So you either have to take the bandwidth down of all of them, right? Or the user just has to suck up a huge amount of bandwidth. And if you've read the concert specs for some of these platforms trying to do this, they say, oh, you have to have this gigantic amount of bandwidth to do the multi-view, right? So just setting that aside. On the ingest side, so what happens when you're out there doing an event and you want to send 4K streams to the fabric? Good quality for that kind of streaming, minimum would be 15 megabits for the stream, and typically more like 20 for a 4K input, right? So somewhere in that range per stream, right? Let me see if there's any other questions here.
Michelle, I'll just chime in and say we have a couple questions in the bottom of the chat box. There's about 4 or 5 there.
Okay, let me grab those. Thanks for hollering at me about that. Pay directly to publishers, and you're partnering with venues directly. Oh, let me mention this one. This is really a great one. Are you partnering with venues directly? How does access to camera become integrated to the stream? So we are actively working to partner with venues. And I think, first of all, we're brand new, meaning we just came out with Eluvio Live in March. One of the things that we have been doing is working with NEVA, the National Independent Venue Association. First of all, we're sponsor NEVA. We also did a tech talk in the NEVA conference, not concert, sorry guys. What we would like to do and what we propose through that is to also allow this model to help the venues, right? And what I mean is that there's nothing stopping a ticket sale on this from having a few benefactors, right? Both the artist and the other folks who produce the event, as well as the venue. And this is what we think ought to be, directly part of the model. The tech can support it. What we need is your help to get the human connections flowing. Dan and I went to Polestar Live this summer to meet folks, and it was very good and worked really nicely, but we're new to the space. So I think the short answer there is, if you're a venue and you like to, work with us on some of your shows and have a turnkey system for being able to do live streaming in conjunction with the rest of what you're doing, this would be great. And please reach out to us about that. We did put together a formal program around that we're supporting, mostly technical support, right, through NEVA, and Dan can share that with you. You don't have to be a NEVA organization, but we felt like that was a good way to go. And then of course some of the larger non-independent venues we've been supporting shows that are filmed there. The other thing that's interesting I want to mention beyond traditional venues is non-traditional venues. The Rita Ora show that's going to be broadcast was actually filmed at a landmark, right? The Eiffel Tower. Now I realize that's really a big deal, but imagine, really opening up the possibilities where you as an artist could go find the places that you really love. And they could be really local to your home and your heart. They could be really big, like the Eiffel Tower. And then you could literally shoot there and distribute on the fabric, right? That's what this is all about, right? So let's see, what else? Will the slides be available after presentation? Yes, they will be through MBA. Is this specific to a particular blockchain? No, it is not. And I really want to stress that because obviously I'm a tech fanatic here about all this stuff. But the fabric itself internally is in a full Ethereum compatible blockchain. We used an Ethereum architecture because it's mature, well vetted, and also we were able to customize it. It's proof of authority-based consensus, which allows that to be efficient. But that is really not even the key point to this question. The real issue is whether there's portability, right, of token access contracts and for tokenized ownership, like NFTs. Do those port to other blockchains? The answer is absolutely yes. And then also, this is what we're designed to do, and all of our applications are, seriously have both the Ethereum mainnet and also Solana based portability today. And then also, that's going to continue evolving because blockchain technology is so emergent, right? So I'm really happy about this, because I think what our role is here is to allow content itself to be tied to that blockchain tokenization, not to decide which blockchain architecture people want to use or even tokens that people want to pay with, right? And as you all have seen, that's a very emergent space that's going to change a lot over the next few years. Is there any protection against DOS attacks in the Eluvio network and large-scale malicious actors? Absolutely, from the bottom up. So just kind of like set the high points, and then if you're a person who wants to go really deep on the security side of the fabric, happy to get in and have you vet us fully. But first, most important idea with the content fabric is that really it's trustless. If you've heard this is the idea of having a software system where the actors in the system don't have to trust each other on face, but instead they are each inherently protected from each other. Most important point to this whole idea, aside from your direct question of DOS, is the content itself is encrypted with owner keys. So all of those sharded byte, chunks of data are encrypted with owner keys throughout the network. So irrespective of what the nodes do and what happens to those nodes, no one, including Eluvio, can take your content. The second thing is that encryption is not just classical encryption, AES, public-private key-based encryption, but it is also what we call AFGH or proxy-based re-encryption coming out of this is a new branch of cryptography that's become mainstreamed and highly scalable with the growth of blockchains. What it means is that there's an additional layer of encryption that is also owner controlled, and that on access, right, when someone else gets access, the re-encryption to their key space happens without giving any trust to the software that's doing the re-encryption, a la us, right? This is a really, really powerful crypto primitive. That's how all the content, if you will, authorized transaction and re-encryption happens everywhere in the fabric. And then getting to the question about denial of service, then the way our nodes run, both in terms of the system infrastructure that they run on, as far as just the configuration of firewalls and if you will, access to the actual host where the software runs, that all follows standard best practices in all modern IT systems. But even beyond that, this is what's really interesting. Even if that was penetrated, your content can't be taken, right? And then the last point, which is really important to these, to the wallets, right? The custodial wallets, right? We are, acting as key management for those wallets and the platform, and we utilize these same trustless principles to manage keys on behalf of users. So that we can sign on their behalf and keep the wallet experience more simple. Now, anybody who does security seriously in IT knows that even the best designs are imperfect, right? But at least we have all these foundations that run today. And then let's say I want to address another point, which is another challenge with some blockchain networks, right? The nodes can be joined to the network. It's open and run by others, but all the principles of the software still hold, right? And the data, the content still hold, even if a node is run by another party, right? Okay, let's see, we're at 12. We are right on the money, guys, at the top. So again, if anyone needs to reach us, we're all first name here, Michelle at eluv.io, Barney at eluv.io, Dan at eluv.io, info at eluv.io. Please write us. We'll love to work with you. Thanks so much, the Music Business Association, for sponsoring this today.
Thank you, Michelle, for your time and your insights. That was really excellent. And thank you all for attending today. Glad to have you here and hope to welcome you to the next Music Biz webinar. Y'all have a good rest of your afternoon.
Bye-bye.